What if I told you that stepping into the Byzantine court was like walking into a lion's den covered in velvet, where one wrong word, one raised eyebrow, or a single whisper in the wrong ear could destroy your career or even cost your life? In this video, we're diving deep into the brutal politics, the silent betrayals, the hidden ceremonies, and the unspoken rules that made surviving the Byzantine palace nearly impossible, even for the most powerful people in the empire. But before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell us your city and local time in the comments. We want to know exactly where in the world you're watching from. You stand before the chalk gate, the bronze-clad entrance to the great palace of Constantinople. It gleams like it was cast from the sun itself, and even from outside, you can feel the weight of ceremony pressing against your skin like heavy robes. The guards, stoic, silent, draped in silks, dyed the forbidden imperial purple eye. You with a blend of boredom and suspicion. You haven't even stepped inside, and already your nerves are fraying. The Byzantine court is not merely a government or a place of royal residence. It is a world within a world, a labyrinth of marble and mosaic, veiled intentions and velvet traps. Step wrong here, speak too quickly, smile too eagerly, wear the wrong shade of red, and you may find your tongue shortened or your eyes plucked out as casually as a gardener picks dead petals. Everyone here plays a role, and every role is scripted down to the tilt of a head or the length of a sayas. You're ushered through the doors by servants who speak Greek with accents older than time. The full absurdity of your position starts to dawn on you. You don't belong here. Not in these jewel-encrusted halls where history is being written in whispers and erased in poison. You're not dressed right. You don't move right. And worst of all, you don't know the rules. Because the Byzantine court is governed not by laws, but by etiquette. So complex it might as well be a spell book. A eunuch approaches. You've been told these men, neither wholly accepted as men nor treated as less than them, hold the real power in these corridors. This one is draped in blue and gold robes, a scroll in one hand, and a polished look of indifference on his face. He doesn't greet you. He just turns, expecting you to follow. You do. The palace swallows you whole. You walk beneath domes taller than churches, past mosaics that seem to shift when you aren't looking. You pass fountains murmuring secrets in languages lost to time. There are corridors lined with gold doors, inlaid with ivory, and rooms filled with nothing but incense smoke and soft music. This isn't just wealth, it's ritualized magnificence. A reminder that the emperor is not merely a man, but the living embodiment of divine will. And now you're in his world. Eventually, you're deposited in a waiting chamber. You're not told how long you'll be there, minutes, hours, days. There are others here, draped in heavy fabrics and heavier silences. No one makes eye contact. No one speaks. They're not just waiting for an audience. They're being watched, judged. Every tick of your foot, every cough, every blink is being weighed by unseen eyes. In dark corners they are already sweating, and it's not just the summer heat. It's fear, real visceral fear, because no one explains anything in the Byzantine court. You're expected to know. The rules are never taught. They are absorbed like perfume through the skin or poison in a drink. When your name is finally whispered, yes, whispered, you're taken down another corridor, this one darker, more intimate. The mosaics here show angels and emperors, each figure with eyes too wide, expressions too calm. The hallway leads to the Chrysotriklanos, the golden hall where the emperor holds his ceremonial court. And here's where your breath catches. The room is dazzling. There are mechanical birds singing in golden trees. A golden throne stands on a raised platform flanked by lions. Yes, lions made of bronze that roar when the emperor enters. Everything you've ever read in fairy tales is real here, except it's sharper, more dangerous. You're not in a story. You're in a machine, one designed to grind egos into powder and spit out obedience. There finally is him, the emperor. He doesn't rise. He doesn't need to. His robes shimmer with purple silk, a color no one else is allowed to wear. His crown, too heavy for one neck, sits like a golden cage on his head. His face is unreadable. Is he bored, curious, angry? You have no idea, and you have exactly 3 seconds to figure it out before your life possibly ends. You try to bow, but is it deep enough? Too deep. When do you speak? Do you even speak at all? The eunuch clears his throat. A test you realize you're supposed to answer a question. That was never asked aloud. Glory to you. Emperor of emperors, you manage borrowing a phrase you overheard in the waiting chamber. He nods. You survive. For now, but don't relax. Because in the Byzantine court, the danger isn't in open insult. It's in subtlety. The wrong word, the wrong friend, the wrong rumor, any of these can undo you faster than a blade. You might not even be told you're in disgrace. One day you'll simply find your privileges revoked, your pay reduced, your protection gone. Yet somehow you'll be expected to keep smiling, because survival in this court isn't about loyalty, it's about performance. The eunuchs and generals and courtiers don't rise because they're noble or good. They rise because they know how to act, and they know when to vanish. And the emperor walks a tightrope. He rules at God's pleasure, but also at the pleasure of his generals, his people, and his own family. More than one emperor has left the throne with his eyes gouged out and his tongue cut short, not because he failed, but because he forgot that even emperors must play their part. So why wouldn't you last a day in the Byzantine court? Because you think survival is about strength or wit or charm. It's not. It's about knowing how to disappear in plain sight. It's about being noticed only when it's safe to be noticed, and being forgotten the rest of the time. It's about speaking without saying anything and listening without reacting. It's about never showing fear, but here you are sweating, panicking, wondering if your last sentence offended the man with a diadem and a mechanical lion. And somewhere behind a curtain, someone is already writing a note that will determine your future or your end in this court. Beauty and terror sleep in the same bed. One wrong step and you're no longer a guest. You're a warning. You've survived your first audience barely, but there's no such thing as relief in the Byzantine court. There's only the next test, the next shadow, the next game being played where you don't even know the rules. You leave the Cressotriclinus with your heart still hammering in your chest, every step echoing like the ticking of a countdown. That strange sensation lingers, the sense that you've passed through a portal and there's no going. Back behind you, the golden lions return to. Silence ahead of you, the eyes, because now you are visible. That single appearance before the emperor marked you. There are rumors already forming, whispered from silk-tongued servants to wine-soaked scribes. Who are you? Why were you summoned? What favor did you seek? And what danger might you bringing? The Byzantine court curiosity is rarely innocent. Every whisper is a probe, every smile a disguise. As you're guided through a narrower hallway by a silent attendant in silver, you begin to notice the architecture differently. This isn't just luxury, it's surveillance. There are windows that lead nowhere, mirrors where mirrors shouldn't be, curtains that seem to rustle when no breeze blows. You realize the palace isn't a building, it's a listening device, and you are speaking even when you're silent. This is the power of the Byzantine system, a network so tangled in ceremony and secrecy that truth itself is suspect. Here the guards watch the nobles watch the eunuchs watch the generals, and everyone watches the emperor. Even the walls have ears. You've heard the phrase before, but here it might be literal. Entire rooms in the palace are designed for eavesdropping. Whisper the wrong name in the wrong chamber, and you might wake up with your property seized and your name removed from the palace registry, as though you are never here at all. You re-led into another chamber, smaller, but no less ornate. A domed ceiling painted deep blue with golden stars. Oil lamps burn in niches carved with Christian iconography. Saints looking down at you with blank eternal stares. Two men sit at a table, scholars perhaps, or maybe spies in the robes of scribes. The line between the two doesn't exist here. One gestures for you to sit. They don't introduce themselves. They don't explain their purpose. Instead, one begins writing, the other begins asking, where were you born? You answer. Whose household trained you? You answer again. Whom do you serve now? Pause. This one's trickier, because the name you give may tie you to a faction, an alliance, a grudge, a piece on someone else's chessboard. You give a cautious answer, not too specific, not too vague. He doesn't blink, just moves to the next question. Have you ever spoken with the Empress? No. You reply a nod, then silence. The scribe writes for several more minutes while you sit there sweating in your seat. Eventually, they wave you away without another word. You leave the room no wiser, but your file has now begun in some vaulted chamber in this palace. Your name, your associations, your answers, your silences now sit on parchment, inked by men you'll never know, read by people you'll never meet. You are no longer just a person, you are a document, a rumor, a potential threat. It's not long before you learn of them. The real power behind the throne, the factions, have names that sound harmless blues greens, remnants of charioteens from centuries ago, now evolved into sprawling political machines. They control provinces, armies, bishops, even the air in the emperor's lungs. And they hate each other more than they hate enemies beyond the empire's borders. Don't pick a side in the Byzantine court. The side picks you. Sometimes, without your consent, perhaps you're seen speaking too long with a certain eunuch. Perhaps someone you once knew, someone from your childhood, maybe has fallen into disgrace, and now your name is blackened by association. Perhaps you said nothing at all, but your silence offended someone higher than you. It doesn't matter. The court doesn't run on justice. It runs on proximity and paranoia. Soon, you begin receiving gifts, not from friends. No one uses that word here, but from benefactors. A bolt of fine silk from Syria, a gold coin bearing the face of an earlier emperor, a rare book of philosophy. None of these are presents. They're probes, baits on a line. Are you loyal? Are you useful? Will you bite? Accept too many, and you look greedy. Refuse too many, and you look suspicious. One morning, you find your private chamber guarded. A silent nod from the eunuch on duty. You're being watched more closely. Now that same afternoon, a noblewoman you've never met speaks your name as she walks past, then disappears behind a curtain. Later, a letter sealed, no signature, just a warning in elegant Greek. Sunrise too quickly. The court prefers balance. You are not the balance. You don't sleep that night. You begin to understand why so many in the court fall ill without any visible wounds. Why insomnia, madness, and accidents are common causes of death. Why some men simply vanish, their names never spoken again, as if pulled from history by the same hand that writes it. Byzantine court doesn't kill you like a soldier kills an enemy. It erases you, slowly, elegantly, thoroughly. But worst of all, it tempts you, because despite everything, the fear, the danger, the illusion, you feel the pull, that gravitational force of power, the seductive gleam of closeness to the throne, the idea that maybe, just maybe, you can learn to play the game, that you, unlike the others, can be clever enough, quiet enough, lucky enough to survive, maybe even thrive. And that is the most dangerous thought you can have in Constantinople, because the moment you believe you can win, you've already lost. Not because you're unworthy, but because the game wasn't made for winners. It was made to keep everyone playing forever, circling the emperor like moths around a flame, each one believing just before their wings catch fire that they were getting close enough to feel warmth without being burned. You start drinking differently now, not because you're thirsty, but because you're afraid. Every cup handed to you, every goblet placed at your side, every sip of watered wine in the imperial dining hall comes with the silent question, will this one kill me? In the Byzantine court, meals are theater, banquets are battlegrounds. And wine is the perfect weapon, invisible, odorless, delivered with a smilio. Seen it already. A minor official keels over during a feast, his lips blue before dessert is served. No one screams, no one rushes to help. Instead, eyes turn briefly toward the emperor, who does not flinch, and then back to their plates. Knives cut through roasted lamb with the same precision they would through flesh. The meal continues. Later, you learned that the man hadn't fallen from favor. He had merely known too much. It's not just paranoia, it's protocol. You start refusing wine unless it's poured in front of you. You switch cups mid-conversation. You learn to read the faces of the cupbearers, the ones trained from childhood to taste before they serve. You watch for any tremble in their hands, any flicker of hesitation in their eyes. But fear isn't the only flavor at court. There's opulence too enough to drown. In your invited, ordered really to attend one of the imperial banquets. These aren't simple meals. They are performances designed to overwhelm the senses and distract the mind. Silk canopies stretch over the dining halls, peacocks strut between columns. The scent of rosewater clings to everything. Harpists play as slaves, carry plates that weigh more than small children. At the head of the room, raised above all others, the emperor sits in radiant stillness, his robes whispering. As he moves, his every gesture mimicked by attendants standing just behind him. He never eats first. He never eats without being observed, because even he, the most powerful man in the empire, is not immune to assassination. You're seated far down, at table but not too far, close enough to be seen, close enough to be watched. The guests around you, diplomats, generals, bishops, and courtiers, speak in half-phrases and rhetorical riddles. Nothing is said plainly. Even compliments carry hidden blades. The emperor values subtlety. One says raising a glass in your direction, especially in those newly arrived at court. Those who know when not to speak you, smile, you nod. You say nothing. It's the safest thing you've done all day. At some point, a performance begins. Acrobats, actors in masks, dancers gliding across marble floors in imitation of saints and sinners. The audience laughs, politely claps, gently pretends to enjoy the spectacle, but no one takes their eyes off their neighbors. The real entertainment is watching who speaks to who leans in too close, who leaves the table early, who returns with a pale face. You start to understand something crucial. Eating at the emperor's table is not a privilege, it's a test. You were invited to this feast not because you're liked or trusted, but because someone wants to watch what you do when you're surrounded by power, and by danger. Days later, you're approached by a man whose face you've seen before, but never spoken to. Domesticos Tunskallen, commander of the Imperial Guard. His armor is gilded, but functional. His eyes sharp as a hawk's. He doesn't waste words. Didn't touch the honeyed figs, he says flatly. It's not a question. You shake your head. You'd sensed something off, or maybe you'd just been too nervous to eat smart. He mutters, but now someone thinks you knew something you weren't supposed to. He walks away. You left standing in the corridor with your pulse pounding. Who is someone? What did you not eat that you were supposed to? Or worse, what did your refusal imply? This is the Byzantine court's most exhausting trick. There is no neutral action. Every behavior is interpreted. Every silence is loaded. Even your caution might be seen as ambition. You begin to lose sleep, not just from fear of poisoning, but from the weight of every interaction. Every letter you receive could be forged. Every servant you speak to could be a spy. You try to write home just once, but the letter is intercepted. You're summoned the next morning and asked why you were contacting foreign households. You're told it was for your own safety, that the letter was destroyed. You don't write again. You wonder how anyone survives this place, and then you realize most don't, at least not as the person they used to be. You begin to change without noticing. You speak less. You walk more carefully. You stop reacting to the things you see, because showing surprise is a luxury only the ignorant can afford. You learn about Theodora's poisoners, a secret course from a previous empress's time, rumored to have mastered herbs that killed in weeks, not hours. A gentle decline, a whisper of illness, a death so slow and natural that even God would be fooled. And yet the legacy remains. Poison here is not just a tool. It is a language, a sentence passed without trial, a judgment rendered in syrup and wine. You begin to wonder, have you already been poisoned? Because surely no normal person could live in this much tension and not begin to erode. Your stomach aches daily. Your skin grows pale. Your hands tremble more than they should. You tell yourself it's nerves. But is it? There's a story you overhear about a courtier who drank a silver draft every day, convinced it would protect him. He died anyway, but not from poison, from isolation. No one wanted to sit near him. No one trusted a man who feared his own wine that much. This cork doesn't just destroy the body, it isolates the soul, and in that isolation, you begin to understand something darker. The people here don't fear poison because it's deadly. They fear it because it's invisible, undetectable, untraceable. It's the perfect metaphor for everything. In Constantinople, power, betrayal, truth, lies, all of it invisible, all of it fatal. And so as you lift your next cup, watched by others, your hands steady, your heart shaking, you realize that your survival depends not just on caution, but on performance. You take the sip and you smile. You wake up earlier, now not from duty, but from fear, the fear that someone else rose before you, that a conversation was had, a deal struck, A slander whispered before your feet even touched the cold. Marble floor in the Byzantine court sleep is a luxury reserved for those who have already lost dressing, becomes your daily rite of survival. Not just in choosing what to wear, but what message to send, because here clothes are not mere garments. They are weapons, signals, declarations. The wrong shade of blue could suggest allegiance to the wrong faction. The wrong cut of sleeve could signal ambition above your station. Wear silk when you shouldn't, and you're seen as arrogant. Dress plainly, and you're mistaken for weak. There's an entire department, the sacularios, responsible for regulating court dress. They'll fine you, shame you, exile you, even execute you for breaking code. Not because they care about fabric, but because control over appearance is control over status. You've begun to learn the system, and it's terrifying in its precision. A man's social standing is literally stitched into his robe's colors, for rank embroidery, for favor patterns, for imperial proximity. Every time you walk through the palace, it's as if you're reading a living scroll made of fabric and posture. You're not just dressing to impress, you're dressing to survive. One day, you pass a man in a brilliant green robe, his belt glinting with miniature golden eagles. You lower your head, not out of respect, but because you know exactly what he is, a logothete, a fiscal minister, not someone you want to annoy. He glances your way, notes your hemline, the decoration on your collar, the quality of your sandals. He says nothing. He doesn't have to. The look alone tells you where you stand below him, but it could be worse there. Another man near the Hall of Administration, dressed in robes too fine for his station. People avoid him. No one speaks to him. You learn later he's been accused, unofficially, of presumption. He wanted a promotion, wore the robes of a higher office before receiving the blessing. He hasn't been arrested. He hasn't even been warned. He's just being erased. You see it in real time. Each day he's seated further from the center of the hall. Each meal he's served slightly later. Then one day he's not there at all. No one mentions his name. The servants walk past his former seat like it was never occupied. He didn't just lose the game. He misunderstood it, and misunderstanding is fatal, because in the Byzantine court, promotion is theater. You're expected to already act the part, but not too well. Show too much competence, and you're a threat. Show too little, and you're a waste. There's no stable ground. The system thrives on ambiguity. That's when you meet your next test, the ceremony of the purple veilet. It's not for you, not yet, but you're summoned to observe. An up-and-coming general has been chosen for promotion. The veil, a richly dyed square of imperial purple, will be draped over his shoulders, symbolizing his elevation. It's more than a piece of cloth. It's a declaration that he is now in line with the emperor, not in lineage, but in symbolism. He now reflects the emperor's authority, and that makes him both powerful and vulnerable. The ceremony takes place at dawn, beneath a golden dome that filters sunlight into molten rays. Eunuchs move like clockwork, their steps measured, their arms folded in precise angles. Musicians play the same three notes over and over, slow, eerie, like a heartbeat trapped in marble. The general kneels, the veil is lowered, and just like that, he is no longer who he was. But you see it in the eyes of those watching, that mixture of envy and dread. He's risen too fast. He's favored, and now every faction will test him. Probe him, wait for end to slip, because in the Byzantine court, favor is a death sentence in slow motion later. That day you're summoned to the hall of the Augusta, the chamber, where imperial women, including the empress, occasionally observe court affairs behind a gilded lattice. You don't see them, but you feel them. Their presence is palpable, like perfume you can't wash off. A eunuch approaches. He leans close enough for you to feel the warmth of his breath. You're being considered, he whispers. For what you asked too quickly, he doesn't answer. He disappears. That night you stand in front of the small bronze mirror in your quarters. You stare at your reflection, unsure what face you're supposed to wear tomorrow. The confident one, the cautious one, the one that looks like you're grateful to be noticed, but not too eager to rise. What does being considered mean? A role, a risk, a trap? This is what rank means in the empire. Not power, not stability, but constant calibration. You begin rehearsing facial expressions like an actor. You practice how to bow, how deep, how slow. You memorize which direction to stand in when addressing a member of the Senate versus a member of the Household Bureau, versus a cousin of the emperor. You learn how to kneel without shaking. You learn how to smile without showing teeth. And you start keeping a list, not of your enemies, but of their tailors, because knowing who dressed whom is often more useful than knowing their titles eventually. You're given a new robe, not bright, not imperial, yet unmistakably different from what you wore before. It means something. You're being watched, groomed, tested, or marked for removal. You wear it carefully, as if it weighs more than gold, because it does. And this empire rank is not a ladder, it's a tightrope, and everyone's waiting for you to fall. You start to notice how people speak, not just what they say, but how they say it. The way their voices dip when the emperor's name comes up. How a sentence trails off when someone enters the room. How laughter shifts in tone when it's directed upward towards someone with power, or downward towards someone already crumbling. Words in this court are not tools. They are traps. You've heard it said that the Byzantine Empire runs on bureaucracy. But the real engine of Constantinople is rumor. The empire might be ruled by emperors, guarded by eunuchs, advised by generals and priests, but it is governed by whispers. And you are not immune. It starts with something small, a nod from a palace scribe, a knowing look from a servant who used to be indifferent, then a strange pause in a conversation, someone asking you to confirm a detail you never shared aloud, and then it hits you, a rumor about you. No one says it directly. That's not how things work here, but it hangs in the air thick as incense. You hear one version from a page boy. He's a distant cousin of the empress. Did you know? Another from a guard. They say he once advised the basileus in private, behind closed doors. You haven't, but you also haven't denied it. You begin to wonder who started this. Was it you? Your silence, your careful posture, that single time you spoke too confidently before a minor official. Or did someone else do it for you? You try to track it down and name a face, but the rumor is already outpacing you, and now it has mutated, grown. It's no longer about who you are. It's about what you want. Seeking promotion, someone says. He thinks he's above his station, says another. He's aligned with the Greens. None of it is true, and all of it is because in the Byzantine court, your intentions don't matter. Only how you're perceived, and the moment someone thinks you want power, you're dangerous. Whether you do or not, you try to shrink, you stop showing up early, you avoid eye contact, you nod more, smile less, you wear slightly duller colors, you speak slower, you make yourself small. But it's too late, because now the question has been asked, not openly, not in a way anyone would admit, but silently, in corners, over wine, in quiet rooms, filled with polished brass and silent attendants. Should we be worried about him? Once the question is asked in the Byzantine court, it never dies. It either gets buried with your career or with you. You find yourself invited to fewer meetings, left off certain lists. Someone begins sending you duplicate messages. One summoning you to a council chamber, the other saying it's been postponed. The goal isn't to trap you. It's to test you. See if you complain. See if you lash out. See if you ask the wrong person for help. You don't you keep quiet, which ironically makes them even more suspicious. One day, you're approached by a monk in plain robes, face half covered by his hood. He doesn't give his name, he just walks beside you. For a while, do you know, he says what happens to those who become subjects of rumor in this court. You nod, but he speaks anyway. They vanish. Not in death, in presence, first from the invitations, then from the meals, then from the seating charts, then from the records. You glance sideways. Are you warning me? Gives a smile so small, you're not sure you saw ID, reminding you, and then he's gone. You start noticing others who've been touched by whispers. Men and women who walk the halls with two perfect silence, faces once animated, now still like masks. You try to speak with one, a former advisor to the Minister of Grain. He barely looks at you. You mention a shared acquaintance, and he pretends not to remember, as if clinging to your name might pull him deeper into the mud. In Constantinople, you're either useful or dangerous, and sometimes you're both at once. You realize something cruel. No one is immune, even the emperor, especially the emperor, because while everyone fears him, they also watch him, his movements, his health, his silences. Every cough, every delay in speech, every shift in policy, each one becomes fodder. The eunuchs whisper, the patriarchs scheme. The generals prepare contingencies, because when rumors start about him, when people start asking who should be next, well, that's when accidents happen. Emperors fall literally, from balconies, from horses, from grace. Behind it all, no fingerprints, only whispers. You think back to the old official who collapsed during a feast, the one who knew too much. What if he didn't? What if he just heard something and didn't keep it quiet? Or, worse, what if someone just wanted him gone? Because that's the truth. No one says aloud in this palace of marble and mirrors. Rumors don't have to be true. They only have to be useful. So, now you play a new game, the rumor game. You start seeding your own carefully, subtly, nothing that draws attention, just enough to change the narrative. You drop a phrase in passing. The emperor trusts his generals too much. You let someone overhear you saying you're ill, mentally, not physically. A little madness in your name can make you seem less threatening. You mention a cousin in the provinces loyal to the Blues, of course, who once offered you a post far from court. Let them think you want to leave, let them want you to. A place where suspicion is deadly, insignificance is protection. And you finally understand what survival looks like in the Byzantine court. It's not rising. It's not falling. It's hovering in the space between being noticed and being erased. It's becoming so boring, so unthreatening, so politically inconvenient to kill that people just stop whispering. But even that, you know, is temporary, because in this palace, there is always someone whispering, and eventually, one of those whispers will have your name on it. It begins with a shadow on silk, a movement behind the golden lattice, a flicker of presence in a room where women are supposed to be invisible. You're in the audience hall, attending a minor ceremony. Nothing significant. A tax reform document is being ratified, boring procedural, meant for scribes and ministers, not for someone like you. But she is there, the empress. You catch only a sliver of her profile through the veiled partition. A pale brow motionless, a jeweled hand resting like marble on a gold inlaid armrest. She doesn't move, doesn't speak, and yet everyone in the room shifts. Ministers straighten, generals stiffen, bishops glance nervously over their shoulders. Her presence changes the temperature of the air. You've heard stories, of course. Everyone has that she rules through glances, that she controls entire factions with a smile, that she never forgets an insult, even ones whispered in jest. Some claim she once had a rival buried alive in a monastery crypt. Others say she seduced half the Senate before her marriage to the emperor. The truth doesn't matter anymore. The myth is the truth. The empress is not a decoration. She is a force, and now she's watching you. Realization settles on your shoulders like fresh snow. You're not even sure what you did to deserve her attention. Was it your recent promotion? The robe? The rumor? Did you bow too slowly when her name was mentioned at court? You keep your gaze low. You remain still, but your thoughts race. Because when the empress notices you, your life doesn't stay the same. It either accelerates or ends. She doesn't speak to you that day. Of course not. She never addresses outsiders in public. Her communication flows through invisible channels, eunuchs, letters without signatures, subtle shifts in seating arrangements, and then one morning, it happens. A servant appears at your door with a simple message. You are summoned to the triclinos of the Augusta. You don't ask questions. You don't even breathe. You just dress carefully. You wear the robe that suggests loyalty, without ambition, embroidery, subtle but expensive enough to suggest dignity. You leave your golden ring behind, too ostentatious, and choose the plain one gifted to you months ago by a minor court official you barely remember. Every detail matters now. Triclinos is not where the empress rules. It's where she decides. You are led down a hallway that smells of lily and warm myrrh. The walls are quiet, covered in soft hangings. That mute sound you pass. No guards, no officials, just silence. At the door, a eunuch gestures. You enter alone. She is seated at the far end of the room, not on a throne. On a cushioned divan, beneath a mosaic dome that glitters like starlight. The floor beneath her is made of silver-flecked marble. Around her, 3 other women sit. Ladies in waiting, perhaps, or advisors or spies. All wear identical expressions. Blank, beautiful, dangerous. The empress gestures for you to sit. You do. She does not ask your name. She already knows it. I've been hearing about you, she says simply. Her voice is soft, almost amused. The kind of voice that makes you unsure whether you're being praised or mocked you. Bow your head slightly. I'm honored, Augusta, she studies you for a long moment, as if trying to read the stitching of your soul through the layers of your robe. I've heard you are cautious, she says. That's rare. Most men who arrive here are loud or stupid. You try not to react to compliment, maybe, but also a warning. Then she asks the question that chills your blood. Tell me, are you loyal? It's not just a question. It's a summons, a test to Darius. Augusta, you reply immediately. To the emperor, to the empire, and to the throne. She smiles a small, unreadable smile, the kind a viper might give before it decides whether to strike. I'm sure you believe that, she says. Silence stretches. Then she leans forward just slightly. Loyalty, she says, is a fragile thing in this court. It's not about obedience. It's about alignment, and alignment can change overnight. You nod. You nod slowly. I understand. No, she says, still smiling. You will understand soon. She waves her hand. You are dismissed. You leave the chamber with your thoughts tangled and your hands clammy. You expected an interrogation, a proposition, maybe even a threat. Instead, you receive something far more dangerous. Attention. No. You are marked, touched by her gaze, and the palace knows you. Notice it immediately. The changes, subtle but unmistakable. Your meals improve, slightly, just enough to be noticed. You're invited to events you weren't supposed to know about. A unit you've never spoken to calls you by name and offers advice. The favors come with friction. People avoid your eyes. Conversations pause. When you approach, one minister, an ally, or so you thought, asks you directly if you've made yourself useful to the Purple Veil. You deny it, of course. But denial means nothing here. What matters is that they believe you are now part of her circle, and that makes you dangerous. Because the Empress does not share power, she lends it briefly to those who serve her interests. And when they fail, when they become inconvenient, they don't fall, they vanish. You meet another of her former favorites one evening, a scholar named Marinos, thin, trembling, with eyes that won't focus. He once ran the Imperial Library, held audiences with ambassadors, was said to advise the Empress on theology and statecraft. Now he tends garden plots outside a monastery. By imperial permission, of course. He doesn't speak of her, not even when you're alone, not even when drunk. You ask him what happened. He laughs without humor. Have you ever seen a candle flicker too brightly? He says. That was me. You start sleeping less, trusting less, watching more. You start rehearsing excuses for crimes you haven't committed yet. Through it all, the Empress remains silent, watching, waiting. She might summon you again tomorrow. Never. That's the danger of being seen in the Byzantine court. Means you've been selected, but never told for what. You begin to understand the isolation, not the public kind. No, in Constantinople, you're never truly alone. There are always voices in the hall, whispers on the wind, eyes behind curtains. The real isolation is internal. It's the slow, suffocating realization that in this palace of saints and serpents, no one is truly on your side. Friendship doesn't exist in the Byzantine court. At least not the kind you knew before. You've had friends, perhaps in another life. People you laughed with, confided in, people who wanted nothing from you but your company. That kind of bond dies the moment you step past the chalk gate. Here, everyone wants something, and the moment they no longer need you, you become disposable. It starts subtly. You notice one of your closest allies, an archivist named Stephanos, avoiding you in the hall. No greeting, no glance. A week ago, he shared secret court gossip over wine. Now he won't meet your eyes. When you finally corner him, he mumbles something about being seen too often with you. Then he disappears behind a tapestry and doesn't come back out. You don't see him again for days. Then you do. He's with a delegation from the military bureau, standing 2 paces behind a powerful strategos. He doesn't look your way. And now you understand he's made a choice, and it wasn't you there. As a woman in the palace, to Damaris, a brilliant mind from the legal office, sharp-tongued and quick-witted, she once helped you rewrite a petition in a way that saved your name from scandal. For a moment, you thought perhaps she might be the exception, a true ally, but then you see her whispering to a bishop who once tried to have your role reassigned. Their laughter doesn't carry, but their glances do. You remember what she told you weeks ago. In this palace, the one who gets too comfortable is the one who disappears next. Now, you wonder if she said it as a warning or a confession. You begin to keep track of betrayals, like you once tracked meetings, who sat beside, who bowed just a second too late, who turned a compliment into an insult with a single extra word. Worst of all, who vanished without explanation. You start making up reasons why you're seen with certain people, casual meetings, coincidence. You speak in circles, you add disclaimers to every sentence. You stop answering direct questions. When asked about your loyalties, you say, "I serve whoever serves the empire best." That line works. It says everything and nothing. You miss sincerity, you miss it like a missing limb, something that once functioned effortlessly, now an aching phantom. One evening you're invited to a private gathering at the home of a noble family within the walls of the palace. Complex you accept, declining would raise suspicion. The event is lavish but subdued, attended by those who wear robes too dark and smiles too thin. There's laughter, but it doesn't reach the eyes. You recognize a few faces, some high-ranking eunuchs, a military advisor who speaks 6 languages, 2 widowed cousins of the empress who speak only to each other and giggle after every phrase like it's a joke no one else is allowed to understand. At some point you're offered a drink, not by a servant, but by a high official, a man you've never met directly, but who sits only 2 levels beneath the emperor in court hierarchy. He hands you the goblet himself. To loyalty, he says. You accept it. You take a slow sip and you smile. The next morning, there's a note tucked beneath your door. Some doors open only to those who drink what they're offered. Others only to those who know when not. Tono, signature, no wax seal, just a piece of papyrus. In a dilemma, did you pass a test or fall into one? You'll never know. That's the curse of this place. Every relationship is temporary. Every bond is provisional. People remember kindness only if it can be used against you. You start thinking in tiers of usefulness, not people roles, what they can do, what they might say, what they owe you, or worse, what you owe them. You become what they area tool, a watcher, a whisperer. Court molds you slowly like wax. It doesn't need your consent. It just melts away everything that doesn't fit. Idealism, trust, joy, these are liabilities, and liabilities get purged. You begin to write a letter addressed to no one, just a record of who you once were. You don't plan to send it. You barely finish a paragraph before you stop, because even writing it down feels dangerous. You burn it in your oil lamp, and even as the flame eats the words, you wonder if someone will still find them. Was the parchment traced? Did someone see you writing? You go to chapel more often now, not out of piety, out of desperation. You kneel before icons, candlelight flickering on your face, and beg the saints for clarity, not protection, not blessings, just truth. But even the saints seem politicized. Here's some icons favored by the empress, others by the military, still others by the greens or the blues. Even in prayer you're not alone. Even in silence you're being watched. Eventually you meet an old man in the outer cloister of the Blacherney Palace. He's sweeping stone tiles, his back bent, beard, long hands calloused. He doesn't look important, but when you greet him, he chuckles softly. Been here long, he asks. You nod. He points toward the main hall. You see all those windows. You nod again. None of them are real. He says they're painted on. The wall is solid, thick as a ship's hull. You squint, unsure if he's telling the truth or a metaphor. Then he adds, that's what the court does to you. It builds walls, makes you believe you can see through them. But all you're really seeing is what they want you to believe. You want to ask who he is, but something in his eyes tells you not to. You leave without another word. That night you lay awake. No whispers, no visitors, just the sound of your own breath and the slow awareness that you've become a person you wouldn't have recognized a year ago. In this empire you've learned to navigate shadows, but now you're starting to wonder, is there even a way out? And if there is, anyone still be waiting for the version of you that comes back? If the Byzantine court had a soul, it would live in the ceremonies. The grand ones, the coronations, the royal weddings, the festivals flung open to the people of Constantinople. No, the real ceremonies, the ones that matter, are secret, quiet, performed not for the masses, but for the empire itself. And now you've been invited to one not summoned, not ordered. Invited, that in itself is terrifying. You receive the message on parchment, too fine for a common scribe. No signature, just a place, A time and one line, attend and be remembered. The location is unfamiliar, a chapel buried deep within the Magnara, one of the palace's oldest wings. You've passed by it before, without noticing now. Guided by two silent eunuchs, you find it, lit with only a few oil lamps and a tall central candle that burns with a blue flame. You are not alone. 6 others stand in the chamber. Men and women, some familiar, some not, all dressed in robes of identical black silk. Their faces are calm, too calm, like people trying to remember the expression they wore before fear existed. A priest begins chanting in Greek, but the words are unlike any liturgy you've heard in the Hagia Sophia. They speak not of Christ or the saints, but of order, service, purity, of intention and loyalty to the veiled throne. No names are spoken, no titles, only roles: the watcher, the interpreter, the guardian of silence. You begin to understand this is not a religious service, it's an initiation. No one tells you what this is, not directly, but by the end of the ceremony, you know you've been brought into something. A network of faction without a name, a group that exists in the cracks between the Senate, the church, and the imperial household. They don't need your oath. Your attendance was the oath afterward. One of the women steps beside you. Her face is calm, her voice quiet. You'll be asked to report things now, she says. Small things at first. Nothing that endangers you, conversations, movements. Affiliations. You nod, throat dry. You will not ask questions, she continues. You will not speak of this gathering, and you will never again call yourself uninvolved. Then she hands you something, a token, carved of ivory shaped like a closed eye. You're to keep it hidden, always it. S not power, it's accountability. You are no longer just watched. You are a watcher, and that changes everything in the days that follow. You find yourself moving differently through the palace. You notice things you used to overlook. A servant who always lingers too long outside the strategos chamber. A clerk who files reports twice, once for the record, once for someone else. A bishop whose sermons never mention the emperor and whose private chapel bears the symbols of a foreign sanctuary. Begin submitting your observations encrypted through channels you don't understand. You leave a folded note beneath a cracked tile in the floor of a hallway used only by scribes. It's gone by morning. No one thanks you, but the benefits coming are suddenly invited to a private briefing with a man from the mint. He speaks of coinage reform and wants your opinion despite you not being trained in economics. Then a general asks your thoughts on the provincial grain route. You're offered access to archives once restricted. A palace cook, one you've never spoken to, starts slipping extra almonds into your bread. It's not friendship, it's access. And it's dangerous, because now you are useful and useful people are valuable. But valued things can be replacey. You're asked to make your first recommendation a reassignment. A minor official you suspect of leaking documents to the Greens. You don't know if he's guilty, but you've seen him whispering to the wrong people. You've noticed how he pauses when passing certain icons in the corridor. You write his name. 3 days later, he's reassigned to the provinces. You don't see him again. You should feel powerful instead. You feel watched, because now that you have eyes, you realize they are watching to see how you use them. This isn't a gift. It's a test. Every action you take is being weighed, every silence judged. You're not free. You've simply graduated into a higher tier of servitude. Then the summons a private audience, not with the emperor, but with his parakoimonos, his chamberlain, the most powerful eunuch in the court, the man who holds the emperor's keys, who whispers in his ear at night, whose signature on certain decrees carries the weight of the throne itself. Meet in a garden surrounded by bitter orange trees and a fountain carved with sea monsters. The air smells sweet, but the tension is bitter. He greets you without warmth. You've risen far, he says, faster than most. You bow. You've served loyally, he continues. But understand, this loyalty to the court is not the same as loyalty to the emperor. You freeze. He steps closer. His robe rustles like silk on stone. There may come a time, he says, when you are asked to choose between what serves the man and what serves the empire. You nod slowly, unsure which answer is safest. I hope, he says, you'll choose correctly. Then he turns and leaves. Left in the garden, the wind rustling the leaves overhead, the scent of oranges cloying in your nose. You realize that you've passed another threshold. You are no longer an outsider trying to survive the palace. You are inside it, embedded, infected. Yet a thought lingers at the back of your mind, thought more terrifying than any other. What if the palace doesn't want survivors? What if its entire design, its rituals, its secrecy, its endless shifting of favors and factions is not meant to elevate anyone, but to grind everyone down, to wear out the ambitious, to break the loyal, to poison the cunning with their own success? What if the court is not a ladder, but a trap, a maze of mirrors with no exit, and you've stopped looking for the way out? You're too busy watching. You don't see him, often the man himself, the emperor, the basileus, San Romeon. The shadow of Christ on earth is not a frequent presence. He is not a man who walks casually through his palace. When he appears, it is deliberate. He arrives with ritual encased in brocade and gold thread, flanked by incense and silence. You've seen him only a few times up close, but you feel him always. Because in Constantinople, the emperor is not a person. He's a presence, a system, a ritual wearing a face. He's the one thing that can never be spoken about too freely or too little. In every hallway, every conversation, every decision, he is there, not as a man, as a force. Today, for reasons no one will explain, you are summoned to stand in his presence. You don't dress yourself, attendants do it for you. They wrap you in layers of precise symbolism: blues for discretion, gold trim for current favor, a crimson sash to show you are under direct observation. Every piece of fabric has meaning, every thread a message. You are escorted through the chrysotriclinos, the golden throne room, where light itself seems to bend in reverence. No guards speak, no sandals squeak. There is only the echo of eternity. Then you enter. The emperor does not rise to meet you. He does not smile. He does not nod. He simply is. He sits beneath a canopy embroidered with scenes of Constantine the Great and Justinian arms resting on lion-carved armrests, robes cascading like liquid sunlight. You kneel, forehead to the floor. He speaks. His voice is soft, measured, practiced, like someone speaking not to a man, but to history. Every word is shaped, not just for you, but for the archivists, the scribes, the angels listening overhead. You have served this court, he says, quietly, and well. You remain silent. You have observed without ambition, acted without aggression, reported without fear. He pauses, a silence so thick you feel your heartbeat thudding in your ears. And now you will advise. You look up, not at his eyes. You would never dare, but at the space just beneath his chin, respectful yet present. Advise, Majesty? You ask carefully. There are voices, he says. Many, and the empire is large. And I am one man. The lie is beautiful. You nod slowly. Yes, Majesty. You will speak only when asked. You will observe meetings I do not attend. You will write what I do not say. You are being given a role that does not exist. A position with no name. An ear, perhaps, or a sword, or both. You leave the room, colder than you entered, because now you are not just in the emperor's presence. You are in his orbit, and gravity crushes your duties. Begin the next day. You are present at private meetings, not as a participant, but as a shadow. You sit in a corner, behind a screen, beside a eunuch, or beneath a hanging veil of dyed silk. Everyone knows you're there. No one acknowledges you. That's the rule. The emperor trusts you now, which means no one else will. You feel it immediately. The stares, the quiet way old allies excuse themselves when you approach. The way notes stop arriving. Your circle collapses inward. Even your household staff grows careful. Too polite, too quiet. One day your steward serves your bread with both hands trembling. He doesn't meet your eyes. He's afraid of you now, because to be close to the emperor is not just proximity, it's radiation. It changes you. It marks you. You see things now you are never meant to see. An argument between bishops over heresy charges that could unravel the theological legitimacy of the throne. A forged military dispatch intended to provoke war with the Bulgars stopped just in time. A treasury report showing the imperial mint has been issuing coins with less gold than recorded. And beneath it all, always the quiet calculations of the emperor himself. You begin to see his mind, not through his words, but through his silences. when he delays signing something by a single hour? Why 1? He promotes a man who has failed twice. What message is he sending when he invites a widow of a former enemy to dine, who is the real target? You are learning his game. It terrifies you, because behind every action, behind every law, there is always a second purpose, sometimes a third. The emperor never acts in straight lines. His will twists through marble like a root system hidden unmovable. And Yao, you're now part of it. 1 night you're handed a scroll by the parakoimonos. No wax seal, no inscription. Inside a list of 6 names. You'll speak. To each, the chamberlain says, ask nothing, say only this. The emperor remembers your grandfather's service. You obey. Each conversation is different. 1 man weeps, 1 bows, so low, he nearly splits his spine. 1 blinks rapidly, his eyes darting, calculating. But you never learn why are not meant to you. Realize this is the emperor's way of creating instability. Not knowing is the punishment or the reward or the test. Week 2 of the names are promoted. 1 is reassigned. 1 leaves the city. 4 health reasons. 1 is never seen again. And the last, he sends you a gift, a single gold coin, unmarked, polished smooth, meaningless, and yet so loaded with intention that you bury it beneath the floorboards of your room like contraband. You're not sure if keeping it is betrayal. You're not sure if not keeping it is. You begin to change. You speak less. You smile only in mirrors to practice the illusion. You trust no one, not the clerk who records your hours, not the priest who blesses your meals, not the page boy who delivers your letters, especially not him. And most dangerous of all, you stop hoping, because in the Byzantine court, hope is treason in disguise. It leads you to imagine escape or change or freedom, and nothing enrages the system more than the desire to be outside of it. You're inside, now buried like a gold coin under the marble, and you understand at last. Emperor doesn't need friends, he needs fuses, and when he lights you, you burn slowly, silently, until one day, without warning, you explode. By now the palace has changed you, not outwardly. You still wear the same robes, walk the same halls, nod at the same officials, but inside something has shifted permanently. You are no longer the person who arrived at the chalk date full of awe and dread. That person was soft, curious, capable of trust, capable of rest. That person is gone. You sleep with a dagger under your mattress, now not for protection, but as a symbol, a reminder. In the Byzantine court, danger is never loud. It's not assassins in the dark. It's not poison in your wine. It's a misplaced word, a slow blink, a forgotten title, the absence of an invitation, the sudden silence after your name is mentioned in passing. You used to look over your shoulder. Now you look within. You've stopped reacting to change. A reassignment, a promotion, a death. It's all part of the architecture now. The palace does not mourn. It absorbs, it consumes today. You stand at the edge of the hippodrome, not as a spectator, but as an observer. The emperor appears in the imperial box, flanked by priests and nobles, while thousands scream for the greens and blues, oblivious to the wheels grinding beneath their feet. It looks like celebration. It is not. It is display. Every gesture here, every chariot, every chant, every wave from the emperor is calculated. It reminds the people that the throne still breathes, still watches. But you know the truth now. Power in Byzantium doesn't live on the marble steps. It lives in the shadows behind the curtains. You are one of those shadows, and that means your days are numbered. Everyone are, because this court, this machine of ritual and suspicion, doesn't want loyalty. It demands exhaustion, endless performance, total transformation. And when it's finished, with you, it spits you out, shattered or silenced. You see it all the time now. Court official who fell from a library window, the minister who suddenly went mad, the favored eunuch who vanished after failing to deliver a letter in time. No scandals, no accusations, just silence. Vanishing is a feature, not a flaw. You once believed survival meant adapting. You were wrong. Survival here means forgetting who you were and hoping no one remembers, because memory is a liability. And now it's your turn. You receive a message, a parchment sealed with black wax, not imperial gold, not ecclesiastical red black. You've never seen one before. Inside a single line, you are no longer required. You sit for a long time staring at those words. There's no emotion in them. No explanation, no accusation. You haven't failed. You haven't betrayed. You haven't made a single visible mistake. That's how it works. You rise, dress, walk the hall, slowly memorizing the sound of your own footsteps. At the end of the corridor, 2 guards wait. You've never seen them before. Their armor is polished, their faces blank you. Don't ask where you're going, you already know, but as you descend into the lower halls into the stone belly of the palace, you begin to laugh quietly. The sound echoes off the walls, not from madness, not from despair, from clarity, because now finally you understand. You wouldn't last a day in the Byzantine court, not because you're weak, not because you're unworthy, but because no one does not really. Everyone who stays here long enough is either transformed or destroyed. You are both, and that is the design. The palace was never meant to be ruled. It was meant to consume. It is not a stage, it's a stomach, and you were digested. The doors open, you step through, and for the first time since you arrived at this place, you feel something close to freedom, because there is nothing left for them to take.